All right, draft came and gone, trades came and gone. I thought I'd get my 2% on at least some of these things. I was like, first off, Chris Porzingis going to Atlanta. Did not expect that to be so easy and so fast. To be honest, I thought it was going to be a lot more of a challenge. Really wasn't. But I do think it's an intriguing place for Porzingis to be, along with the Atlanta Hawks. I was like, at best, I was like they could make themselves into the playoff team. At worst, they should at least be fun to watch. I was like, they'll get Jalen Johnson back, and like to be honest, before he went down with injury, they were actually playing pretty well. I think they got a really good amount of young players around what will be Porzingis in like the 30, 40 games he plays, and Trey Young, who also was I thought was playing really well before that injury happened as well. I was like passing the ball, I was like hitting timely shots, I was like I was like changed how he played. To be honest, I was like they got Dyson Daniels that was over here stealing and like being a defensive threat. That I was like, I think that they got an intriguing amount of players, and being able to basically have everybody on the floor that can play. I was like Richard, who really is not like a shooter just yet, but I was like everybody else that is. I was like, I think they got some fun things to play with or whatever like that. But I was like, at the same time, I was like, hey, they're trying to do something. The Celtics got them off the books. They still need a little bit more money, I guess. But hey, they were able to make it work. I'm really surprised that nobody. I was like, they're talking about Jaylen Brown might get moved. I was like, well, people are calling about Brown. People are calling about White. They were talking about they can move somebody like Hauser or whatever. I'm really surprised that nobody's talking about Payton Pritchard being like moved. Just because I was like, I feel like if you move somebody like Hauser, you can move somebody like Pritchard. I was like Pritchard, who I remember a couple years ago. Like I know Phoenix was trying to get him, they wouldn't trade him there. That's before the championship year. So I was like, I don't see why after he's unimproved that he wouldn't have um, a place ever. He also just signed a contract well that he couldn't have somewhere to go. That way you sort of still get underneath the cap. You still get to keep White and Brown for at least this year. Because to me, I was like, I think they still got a team that should be at least top five in the East. I was like, with the team that they got, they're not going to be bad to me, or they shouldn't be bad. Um, I was like the other trade of C.J. McCollum and Jordan Poole. They're really both kind of similar players. You're really just trading basically young versus old, but it makes sense to me with the Wizards that are trying to basically have some veteran presence with the Wizards. So I was like, and plus he's an expiring contract. So best case scenario, I was like, he may help y'all enough to get some y'all fill into the play-in spot. And at worst, you get off his books or trade him during trade deadline and get something for him. So I was like, it works out for everybody. As far as Jordan Poole going to New Orleans, like I think him just going to another spot. I think after he kind of like the Wizards, I was like with him going there, they was sorry, they was sucking. I was like, he got to be the lead man, so I was like, I do think there's some experience you gain from doing that. But I do think that losing all that time, and I'm not saying that you're going to go to the Pelicans all of a sudden, you're going to start winning. I'm not saying that part at all. But I was just saying, like, now it's like he going somewhere else where it's like, obviously, the man there is Zion Williamson, despite however much he plays. But they also got competent players down there with Trey Murphy, and they got Herb Jones. Like they got players there that when Washington, it was every man for themselves, pretty much. I was like, also he's young enough to fit with their crew. I was like, they got new direction there to where it's kind of like, okay, what are they necessarily going to do and put the pieces around? But I was like, I think you don't have DeJounte Murray this year. You need somebody who basically can line it up in a way that I think that CJ McCollum, I was like, he can. And I was like, I think he's a little bit better a passer than Jordan Poole, but they're really about the same player. But I think you just get more of explosiveness with Jordan Poole than you do with McCollum. That works better to me with Zion Williamson. Speaking of the Pelicans, I was like, everybody was talking about the trade that they did in the draft where they moved up a few spots, gave an unprotected first round pick. And on one hand, I get it of like not protecting it because the pick could be in a way where it's like it could be another top pick. But at the same time, I was like, to be honest, I also miss these kind of trade that we used to have where there always wasn't a stipulation to the damn picks, where you were just trading picks just to trade picks, and with, hey, if you just suck, you just sucked or whatever. We just figure that out later. I was like, where like now everybody's like, I gotta protect my ass. So I was like, it's a protected if it's a top 10. I was like, hold on, we gotta swap, we gotta switch. I was like, whatever. I was like, cool. I like the fact that this had everybody in the uproar, especially the people that's like, oh my god, these picks. When sometimes I'm like, I don't really care about these picks like that, because guess what? If you suck, then you just suck and you're gonna be in this spot again anyway, to basically add to the pick that you probably didn't do well with this last year. Whatever. I thought it was low. I was like, does it have a chance to be bad kind of Milwaukee or Pelicans? Yeah, it does. But I was like, at the same time, I was like, I think in the NBA draft is a little differently of getting a person that you're like, I believe that this guy could be a top guy. Yeah, I know you want to get like cost control players or whatever, but to me, I was like, I think that in the NBA draft, go get the dude that you think could be cool, because you also only got so many spots and only so much development time. Now, hit Queen and Zion both. I was like, that fit, because I was like, I really do like Queen, but I was like, to be honest, Zion ain't gonna be playing like over here like 70 games, so Queen gonna get on the court to basically prove himself, so it'll be fine. But yeah, I was like, you only got so much time and so many spots, so much development to really do. I was like, the Pelicans have been pretty good of like developing a lot of some of their players, but I was like, not everybody in Oklahoma City, we're gonna have like 45 young people and like at least out of that 45, 38 develop, so you only got so many spots, you only got so many picks. Yeah, that pick become like the number one through like three pick, we'll roast them just like how anybody else do. But until then, I was like, it's whatever. They got the dude that they wanted. That's all that really matters in the whole grand scheme of things. Um, the Mark Williams trade, I was like, I'll talk about it in like a Hornets thing when I was like, from their side. But as far as Phoenix, I was like, to me, Phoenix just had to do one thing, and that's fill out the roster. Because I feel like since they basically got Bradley Beal, because that was really what it was, I'm like, and yes, Kevin Durant, but it's really Bradley Beal. They really just needed depth. They really needed play. Really needed people, and they finally got them. Does it all make sense and work? No, but I was like, they got enough people to rotate and sort through. That is like when they have these injuries, when they have like trying to figure out lineups and all this other stuff, they got at least people to plug in and play. They at least got actual centers. They actually got other guards. Yeah, it's going to look wonky and it's going to look like a lot, but hey, they got more pieces around Booker that is like, hey, we might be able to trade some of these dudes later or whatever like that, but at least we got a full roster, and that's not something you could say when they was over here snagging people basically that had no business really over here playing and all that other stuff. So I was like, the trade, I was like, I feel like it's fine. I was like, Mark Williams was going to probably get traded. I was like, if it was good enough for the Lakers to attempt, I feel like Phoenix was fine. They drafted another center. They got a couple centers already on there. One of them probably going to eventually go. But I was like, I feel like they built up enough to where like that won't be a problem like how it was when they had Nerfits there the last couple of years, to be honest. And that's it. I was like, I don't really have nothing really too much with the draft. I was like, outside of Harper and Coop, I was like, Bailey to an extent, but I was like, it's really just funny that he just went to Utah. I don't really have nothing on the draft as of right now. I was like, I'll see the player when they show up in Vegas in the summer league, maybe see some highlight. But I was like, I can't do that anymore. Of like knowing who all these dudes is. I used to be able to. I was like, I don't. I'm like, whatever. I'll see when they all play. Anyway, just my 2% on all these couple days of stuff. We'll see how things go. With the Kaminga go to the Miami. I was like, I think that's intriguing. I actually like that a lot, to be honest. I was like, I think that's a really good fit. I think the Heat should do stuff like this, that if they're not going to get the big whale or whatever, they should go after some of these young dudes that have played but haven't fully shown their potential or whatever. The Lakers getting Wiggins, I don't really like that, but at the same time, maybe they can add a little bit of fuel to him, because I was like, he's not going to need the ball. He can score you 20. He can play defense. He can shoot threes. Then it wasn't good with the Heat, but maybe another change of scenery, I guess. Uh, yeah, other than that, we'll see how this rest goes got free agency coming up. So yeah, till then, we'll see. NBA time.